This movie is about a sex researcher named Dr. Hump. Nice. That's called a characteronym, when a character kind of grows into their name. When that happens in the real world, it's called nominative determinism, which does occasionally happen, which does make me wish I had been named Rich Longfellow. Welcome to Exploitation Reviews, and me, Rob, and today I'm taking a look at The Curious Dr. Hump from 1969. This is an Argentinian sexploitation horror film. Haven't seen too many of those. The story here is that there is a doctor who has discovered the secret of immortality, which is a chemical released by people who have recently had sex. In order to get as much of this chemical as possible, our doctor has his golem thing go out and kidnap sexy people, who are then given aphrodisiacs to encourage them to do the things they were doing anyway. So, as you can already tell, this movie is awesome. So let's check it out. We open on some feet. Well, boots, really, which may or may not be made of iron. The owner of those boots walks up behind this kissing couple and chloroforms them. Some sci-fi helpers pack the couple into the back of a hearse. And then, lesbians. These are the 1960s style lesbians, which you may or may not be familiar with. They differ a little bit from the modern versions in that they never had to buy dental floss. They quickly get up to activities that you can't see here on YouTube.
Man, I just work here.
But of course, we don't have to stay here. You can now support the channel on Patreon and get access to spicy versions of my reviews. Link is in the description. Now, you cinephiles might have noticed that the film quality of the lesbians was a little bit different, a little bit better than the film quality we had seen earlier. This is not an accident. When this film was released in America, the distributors added some extra footage to spice the movie up a bit for the grindhouse audiences, including the footage of our kissing lesbians. And this isn't to say there wasn't any nudity in the original version of the film. There was, but the distributor added more. Anyway, our lesbians are interrupted by this thing. What is that? So, this golem thing and his sci-fi helpers will spend the beginning of the movie kidnapping various sexy people. They nab a guy stumbling out of a bar, a woman, enjoying herself with some copies of Playgirl magazine, and a stripper. And at that strip club, musicians might notice that that saxophonist is holding his saxophone wrong. The left hand goes on top, the right hand goes on the bottom. How do you mess that up? And then, 14 minutes and 30 seconds into the movie, we get our first line of dialogue.
10 kidnappings in 10 days. And nobody's got even a lead.
So here we meet the closest thing this movie has to a hero, a journalist who's investigating the kidnappings. He suspects that a doctor who is doing weird sex experiments in Italy might be involved. And then we hop over to what looks like a scientist mixing some chemicals. He has what I imagine for the 1960s was a very advanced surveillance system, but who is he surveilling? Well, that looks like our missing stripper. And she's not the only one here.
The new arrivals, the hippies. Put them together in one room and let them keep their grass. They'll be easier to handle. And let the lesbians share one room. I want to observe them.
They look so glamorous together.
I'll be in my bunk.
So the doctor then talks about some aphrodisiacs, so it looks like our journalist is on the right track. Speaking of that journalist, he gets his first real lead when the barman from the place where the stripper was working comes and tells him about this weird-looking guy who was hanging out at the bar the day of the kidnapping. And then we learn that Dr. Hump needs some chemicals to stay normal. We also learn that this chemical is extracted from people who have been sufficiently aroused. And we also learn that when his patients can no longer perform, they are disposed of. His nurse really doesn't like what they're doing. She thinks what they're doing is wrong, because it is. But she has an alternative solution to the doctor's problem.
Oh, please, use my body to keep you alive.
Ooh, and fans of Rob Zombie might recognize that little soundbite from his song, Never Gonna Stop. So our journalist catches another break when that zombie pops into a pharmacy to get some chemicals. Yeah, that's a thing that happens. The pharmacist tips off the journalist and pays for that with his life. The golem returns to the mansion empty-handed and plays guitar for the sex zombies. And if that sentence doesn't convince you to go watch this movie, I don't know what else I can say. Except maybe this. Dr. Hump has a partner we haven't seen yet, a talking brain in a jar.
Dr. Hump, you have been doing an excellent job of carrying on the experiments I started many years ago in Italy.
So let's review. We've got talking brain in a jar, a sex researcher named Dr. Hump, and we've got some sex zombies, and we've got some lesbians, and we've got that weird golem thing. Yeah, you need to see this movie. So eventually that journalist himself will be captured by Dr. Hump and forced to, do what they do in this mansion. So what do you think? Will the journalist escape and expose this whole dirty affair, or will he be having way too much fun inside Dr. Hump's mansion? That's enough out of me as far as plot goes. Let's talk some highlights. Well, this movie is delightfully weird, but what kept me really engaged, aside from the lesbians, was the cinematography. There are so many cool shots in this movie. Great use of out-of-focus foreground elements and Dutch angles. This thing just looks freaking cool even when the lesbians aren't on the screen. And it's also occasionally funny.
Did the guy with the strange face come back?
No. I don't think that little cutie will be kidnapped. I couldn't be that lucky.
But, like lesbians practicing good dental hygiene, this movie has some shortcomings. Well, in reading some reviews of this movie, it seems that some people had a hard time following the plot. But I'm not sure why. A talking brain taught Dr. Hump how to extend his life by drinking a chemical he could extract from people who have recently had sex. So, the good doctor has his golem kidnap sexy people who are then given aphrodisiacs so they can produce more of the chemical that Dr. Hump needs to survive. Simple. Keep up, people. So, the plot doesn't bother me at all. I think it's fine. I think it's followable. What does bother me a little bit is I wish I had a little tiny bit more background information. I mean, how did that golem get to be that way? And what about those, sci-fi helpers? What's their whole deal? That often happens, I guess, with movies that I like. I just want more from them. But beyond that, I don't really have a whole lot to complain about. I had a lot of fun watching this movie. It's sexy, it's a little bit funny, and it looks great. It's just entertaining all the way through.